This video, I'm doing a follow-up to yesterday's video on the First Homeowner Super Saver Scheme. Now, I've got other videos on this topic. I'll link them down below. And the one thing I want to touch on this is that the process is so important. Now, I'd never leave it to the last minute, and I'm talking about not only within this financial year to put money in, but also next financial year to draw money out. Now, I'm going to cover this again in the future. Superannuation can become a pretty dry and boring topic very quickly. So, if I was to use the scheme, I'd put $15,000 in May. At the first opportunity that I would have, I'd use it from the cash that I'd have available. So let's just assume that I have $40,000 in cash that's been saved from working. I've already paid tax on it, and it's just sitting in a bank account. I'd contact my super fund to make sure that they were able to receive that money and that they have the systems in place so that I could withdraw it under the First Homeowner Super Saver Scheme, because I know from experience not all super funds are created equal and different funds have different systems. So I'd make that phone call at least twice, and I'd call them and have a notepad and pen handy, because I know that it's very easy to be misinformed, and if there was any conflicting information, I'd then call back a third time. So I'd make a personal concessional contribution in May for $15,000. Then in July, which is the new financial year, I'd make another personal concessional contribution for $15,000 again. I would be claiming a tax deduction. Once again, I go back to this time on the phone with the client services person, and I would make sure I have the right forms. So I know from experience they're called Notice of Intent to Claim forms. The important thing is that with a Notice of Intent to Claim form, they can't be processed straight away. So I'd get confirmation of when it needs to be received by my super fund. The other part of that is I would have put $30,000 in over the span of 4 months and 2 financial years. I could still purchase a property in October, November, December using the First Homeowner Super Saver Scheme, and I'd have to be very precise with the time frames of when I get pre-approval for finance. I think that's so important. I wouldn't even bother looking at property unless I had pre-approval for finance. I would not withdraw money from superannuation using the First Homeowner Super Saver Scheme unless I had pre-approval. And I'd also understand that I have 12 months to purchase a property after the money is withdrawn from super. Okay, now I'll cover some of the finer details on this in the future. But as I've said, I put money in May, claim a tax deduction. I'd put money in July, which is the next financial year. I'd claim a tax deduction then, knowing that the Notice of Intent to Claim form can't be processed for quite some time. I'd still do my tax return as soon as possible in the new financial year. I know that I would get money back on that because of the way personal concessional contributions work and the way that the marginal tax system works as well. So even though all of this would be ticking over in July, August, September, it's so important not to rush what can be both an extremely stressful time and an extremely exciting time, okay? It would involve a lot of phone calls to the ATO and my super fund, but for the figures that we're talking, an $11,000 saving for a young couple is worth spending time in understanding. The second part, understanding that people can qualify for the First Homeowner Super Saver Scheme, or they don't qualify depending on whether they've owned property in the past. Here in New South Wales, we've got the First Home Buyer Assistance Scheme. Purchasing a property under $650,000 means that no stamp duty is payable, which is worth $22,500. I think that's another scheme as well. So when you add those two together, a young couple are saving a decent chunk of money. $33,500 is not money that you'd just say I'm willing to spend without fully understanding how and why. So, with that said, I want to keep these videos really short, sharp, and to the point. And superannuation can get pretty dry and pretty boring. And even though I work in it all day, every day, especially on the investment piece and that sort of thing, that's where I'd like to keep some of these videos, out of the tax side and into the more enjoyable things.